let's talk about this first and often overlooked sign: inner transformation and heart alignment. Before any great love story unfolds, there is always a silent chapter where God works in the unseen. It's a chapter that rarely gets applause because it doesn't look like progress from the outside. There's no hand to hold yet, no wedding invitation being drafted, no dramatic sign in the sky. But inside, something is shifting. You start to feel an urge to grow, not just to wait, but to actively become. This is when God begins to refine you, not to make you perfect, but to make you ready. Because love is not sustained by chemistry alone. It is sustained by character. And character is something forged long before two people ever meet. You may notice this shift as a quiet pulling away from what no longer serves you. Old attachments begin to lose their grip. The relationships you once entertained just to fill a void suddenly feel shallow. The habits that once numbed the ache now start to irritate you, as if your soul is rejecting them. That's not random. That is God's way of clearing space. Space for someone who will not merely fit your life as it is, but call you to a higher version of yourself. It's the pruning that precedes the blooming. And this inner transformation often feels lonely, even disorienting, because you're letting go of a version of you that tolerated less, accepted crumbs, or thought that love was about chasing approval. It's not loneliness. It's solitude with purpose. God is creating a new emotional landscape where your worth is not measured by someone else's attention. You become less desperate, less frantic. You stop negotiating your value just to be chosen. That's what alignment feels like: peaceful, steady, sometimes quiet, but always intentional. Think of it this way: if your heart is a vessel, God is not going to pour a blessing into a container full of cracks. He heals those fractures first. Those insecurities, those old resentments, those unrealistic fantasies shaped by culture rather than truth. Because without that healing, even the right person can become the wrong relationship. It's not enough to meet the right person. You must also be the right person. And being the right person is the work God does with you in private before he ever does anything in public. This is why so many people miss the sign. They see the waiting as punishment instead of preparation. But waiting is active if you allow it to be. This is the time to build emotional resilience, to clarify your non-negotiables, to learn how to communicate with both strength and tenderness, to examine the wounds you haven't yet named. Love will not fix your brokenness. It will expose it. So God, in his mercy, gives you the gift of this season so that when love does arrive, you welcome it not as a cure, but as a partnership. The greatest indicator that this transformation is happening is a newfound sense of contentment. You start to realize that your joy is not on layaway until someone claims you. You live fully now. You cultivate your friendships, your passions, your spiritual health. That fullness becomes magnetic. The right person is not looking for someone to complete them. They are looking for someone who is already complete. Someone who can share their abundance rather than demand to be rescued from emptiness. So when you feel this stirring, this cleansing, this simplifying, this stretching, don't resist it. Don't mislabel it as stagnation. It is the whisper of a larger plan. God is not just preparing someone for you. He is preparing you for someone. And the preparation always starts here within. Because when the inside is right, the outside aligns naturally. And here's what I want you to take with you. The blessing you are praying for is already being shaped, but God is making sure that when it comes, it will not break you. It will build you. So honor the work that's happening in the quiet, because how you steward this invisible season determines how well you can carry the visible one. The second sign that often reveals itself when God is preparing to bless your love life is this. An unusual clarity begins to settle in, and with it, a sharpened sense of spiritual discernment. It doesn't always arrive like a flash of lightning or a grand revelation. More often, it begins as a quiet shift, subtle but undeniable. The confusion that once clouded your choices starts to lift. Where you once found yourself drawn to people who mirrored your wounds, now you start to see patterns for what they truly are: distractions, lessons, or detours, but not destinations. There is a growing ability to tell the difference between what looks good temporarily and what will stand the test of time. This clarity is not just mental, it's deeply spiritual. It's the kind that makes you pause before you say yes to another cycle of disappointment. It's the sudden recognition that chemistry without compatibility is a recipe for heartache, and that a spark without shared values is just a flicker before the dark. God begins to heighten your discernment, and this can sometimes feel frustrating because you start noticing red flags more vividly. What you used to excuse, you now examine. What you once romanticized, you now question. This isn't cynicism, it's wisdom taking root. And here's the profound part. Discernment doesn't always tell you who is the one right away. More often, it shows you who is not. It clears the fog of emotional noise so you can finally see with spiritual eyes. Through prayer, reflection, and sometimes even through a series of unexpected circumstances, God starts to draw lines between truth and illusion. The person who constantly leaves you confused. That confusion is the message. The situation that feels forced, manipulated, or rushed. That pressure is the sign. Clarity often comes wrapped in discomfort because it requires you to step away from what once felt familiar but was never truly right for you. Psychologically, this is a turning point. Our brains are wired to repeat familiar patterns, even unhealthy ones, because they feel safe. But spiritual clarity interrupts that cycle. It allows you to question your defaults, why you're attracted to certain dynamics, why you tolerate certain behaviors, why you've settled in the past. You begin to see that what you called preference was often just a reflection of unresolved pain. And from this awareness, real change is possible. You no longer date to fill a void. You date to build something meaningful. This phase of discernment can also feel like divine interference at times. Plans fall through. Opportunities slip away. People ghost or drift off just when you thought something was forming. It's easy to label that as rejection, but often it's protection. God is not punishing you. He is preserving you for what aligns with the prayers you've whispered when no one was listening. Because when your vision becomes clearer, so does your standard. And that standard is what keeps you from mistaking attention for affection or persistence for intention. And here's something important to remember. Clarity doesn't make everything easy. It makes things true. You may still wrestle with doubt, with waiting, with wondering why certain things didn't unfold as you hoped. But in that wrestling, there is a new steadiness forming. You are less likely to chase after what doesn't feel right. You are less willing to sacrifice your peace for temporary companionship. You begin to prioritize what you cannot fake: trust, respect, consistency, and a shared spiritual foundation. So if you find yourself in a season where you're saying no more often than yes, where you're ending conversations that go nowhere, or choosing to pause rather than rush, don't see that as stagnation. See it as sacred clarity, because in love, the wrong choice at the wrong time can delay the right one for years. And God, in His wisdom, would rather let you feel a temporary void than bind you to a permanent mistake. Let this truth settle deeply. The ability to recognize what is not meant for you is just as holy as the moment you meet what is. Guard that clarity. Trust that inner nudge, because the blessing that is coming will not confuse you. It will confirm you. The third sign, and perhaps one of the most intriguing, is the way divine timing unfolds and how unexpected encounters shape the path toward love. This is where many people get restless, because timing is the one element we can't fully control. We plan, we hope, we even pray with urgency, yet God's timeline rarely matches the clock we keep in our minds. And it's in this gap between our impatience and His intention that something profound is happening. He is orchestrating moments that seem ordinary on the surface, but are anything but accidental. Often, it begins with delays that frustrate you. A door that didn't open when you wanted it to. A relationship that ended before it began. Plans that fell apart without explanation. From a human perspective, these moments feel like setbacks, even rejections. But from a divine perspective, they are redirections. Love, the kind that is worth waiting for, is rarely the product of convenience. It is the fruit of alignment. And alignment takes time, not just to prepare you, but to prepare the circumstances, the other person, even the environment where that connection will take root. There is a subtle beauty in this kind of timing, because it often shows up disguised as coincidence. You meet someone at a gathering you almost didn't attend. You cross paths after choosing completely different route than you planned. A conversation starts because of a delay, a rescheduled event, a change in your routine. These encounters feel simple in the moment, but when you look back, you realize there was a thread weaving them together. That thread is what we often call chance, but in truth, it is providence. Psychologically, this is fascinating because it challenges our need for control. We live in a culture that tells us to create opportunities, to network, to make things happen. And while effort is important, there's a deeper wisdom in recognizing that not everything is meant to be forced. Forced timing creates fragile connections, ones that crumble when the weight of real life presses against them. Divine timing, however, feels different. It carries a sense of effortlessness, not because there is no work involved, but because the foundation is laid by something greater than our own striving. And this is where faith becomes practical. Waiting is not passive. It's not sitting still hoping someone magically appears. Waiting with faith means living your life fully while trusting that the intersections you're meant to arrive at will appear in their season. It's investing in your growth, your calling, your community, not as a strategy to attract someone, but because that's what makes your life rich regardless of whether love shows up today or a year from now. When you live like that, you don't miss the moments that matter. You're present enough to notice them. The irony is, Many people sabotage this stage by either rushing ahead of it or growing bitter in the waiting. They either push doors open prematurely or close themselves off completely. Both extremes miss the wisdom of divine timing. Love that is forced often ends up teaching lessons that waiting could have spared. Love that is resisted out of fear or cynicism never gets the chance to bloom. But love that arrives in its season carries with it a natural rhythm. There's curiosity without panic, attraction without desperation, and progress without pressure. So how do you recognize it when it comes? It feels like peace, not perfection, not the absence of questions, but a deep sense that this connection does not require you to shrink or to strive endlessly to keep it alive. It meets you where you are, and yet it inspires you to become more. It unfolds at a pace that feels organic, often surprising you because you didn't have to manipulate it into being. When God orchestrates the timing, He doesn't just align two people, He aligns their journeys. And that is why the wait, as frustrating as it may be, is never wasted. Every delay, every closed door, every unexpected detour, it all serves a purpose in creating a story that doesn't just start well, but has the strength to endure. So if you find yourself in that between, no longer where you were, not yet where you hope to be, take heart. Divine timing is rarely early, but it is never late. Trust the slow unfolding, because when it happens, you won't have to force it. You'll simply recognize it, step into it, and realize it came exactly when it was supposed to. The fourth sign that often emerges when God is preparing to bless your love life is the presence of a deep, almost unshakable peace, even in the midst of uncertainty. This is not the kind of peace that comes because every question has been answered or every fear has been erased. It's the kind that settles over you despite the unknowns, despite the delays, despite the fact that the future still holds blank spaces. And this peace is not passive. It's a form of quiet strength, a steadying force that allows you to walk forward without the frantic need to control every detail. What makes this peace so profound is that it shifts the way you approach relationships. Before, you may have rushed to fill the silence, to make something happen, to grasp at any sign of attention that promised security. But now, there's a stillness within you. You no longer need constant validation to feel worthy. That doesn't mean you don't desire companionship. It means you no longer define yourself by its presence or absence. And paradoxically, that is often the moment when you become most open to receiving it. Because love is drawn to those who are anchored, not to those who are adrift. Psychologically, this peace is a sign of inner alignment. It indicates that your nervous system is no longer in a state of chronic striving. You've moved from anxiety-driven pursuit to purpose-driven patience. You're able to discern between genuine connection and emotional noise because you are not making decisions from a place of fear. This kind of peace is fertile ground for love to flourish because it creates a safe emotional environment, not just for you, but for the person who enters your life. People can feel when your presence is steady, when your energy doesn't demand rescue, but offers partnership. Spiritually, this peace is a form of confirmation. It doesn't mean everything will be smooth or without challenge, but it does mean you are aligned with God's rhythm rather than your own restless urgency. Often, this peace comes after a season of pruning, the letting go of past entanglements, the surrendering of unrealistic expectations, the rebuilding of self, respect, and faith. It's what remains after the noise has settled. And when you carry this peace, it influences how you interpret the events around you. A delay no longer feels like rejection. It feels like timing. A closed door doesn't break you. It redirects you. A connection that doesn't work out no longer triggers despair. It reaffirms that you are being protected. What's powerful about this stage is that it redefines readiness. Many believe readiness for love means looking your best, being at the right place, saying all the right things. But true readiness is emotional stability and spiritual calm. It's being able to step into something new without dragging the ghosts of the past into it. It's knowing who you are well enough that someone else's presence adds to your life, but never becomes the source of it. And here's the irony. When you reach this kind of peace, you often stop chasing signs. You stop obsessively asking, when will it happen? And start living as though your life is already meaningful. That shift in energy is not only spiritually healthy, it's attractive in the most authentic way. People are drawn to those who radiate contentment because it signals maturity and strength. It says, I am whole, but I am open. This doesn't mean the journey will always feel smooth. There will still be moments of doubt, moments of longing, moments where you wonder if you're missing something. But the difference now is that those moments don't derail you. They come and go like passing weather, while the core of your being remains steady. So if you find yourself in a place where peace outweighs panic, where you can look at your life and feel a sense of readiness without desperation, recognize that as a sign. You are being prepared not just to find love, but to sustain it. Because the blessing God intends to give is never meant to complete a half-built foundation. It is meant to rest on one that is already strong. Carry this with you. Peace is not the absence of desire. It is the presence of trust. And when you can trust even when the path is unclear, you are closer to your blessing than you think.